Welcome to this webinar. Sorry, I was caught up with the live streaming thing, which I am doing for the first time. And today we'll be discussing about how I did a project planning without much of a prior preparation about a four secrets blueprint, which I repeated again and again all the time. All over the last 12 years, I have been repeating the same pattern, which is why I thought this is a pattern which people could follow, irrespective of workplace issues. So, how I started is something of a story which you should know the principles, how I picked up on those secrets, and for that to know, let me first uh, tell you some few basic rules out here. So what we'll do is first we will listen out to whatever I have to say, and the next 90 minutes are going to be eye opener for you. Those are the principles everybody knows, but it is so difficult to apply all those four principles because it involves the mindset. And the mindset is very difficult to overcome when it goes against your wish or the aptitude, whichever is there, and our own mindset. It's not easy to uh, say something and do something which your ego doesn't allow you to do. So that is where it comes, and the solution is pretty simple, but it is very difficult to implement. Solution is pretty simple. Everybody knows about it, but the solution is very difficult to implement. Why? As I said, it is based. It is. It involves ego, right? And we call that as mindset. And say. Uh, let me say. Outline the how I started with this. So, like everybody, I'm an average person, a managerial position person. I thought I had a lot of potential, like many of you, trendsetters and go-getters. They are, uh, they always are more than the average. The fire is there within them, which is why they often face these conflicts, these issues, this friction with many of the people because they can see that what will work, and they can foresee so many things that um, the other people are not able to see, and that is why they think that the other person, whoever is resisting their process, is on the fault. See, you may be very right, you may be correct in doing and pursuing and thinking whatever is right, and over a period of time, it will be proven as right. But it doesn't mean that the other person is wrong, because the other person also is acting from his or her perspective, which is correct at the moment. And the logic that the other person operates from is also correct for the time being. Unless somebody is proven to be wrong, one cannot be wrong in the long run. Do you get that point? So when the other person thinks and convinced it to be right, the person has the right to be right, right? And if you have a, a mindset or a viewpoint contrary to what the other person is saying, then you need to prove that. You need to establish that as something different. And that is very difficult to establish beforehand. So, what is the solution? Will you be persisting with the uh, friction and being in conflict with the other person or the other people all the time? Or will allow the other person to have to express their viewpoint as well and get going with the project. Right? So that is where there are few tricks which we can apply. How to manage the team, your colleagues, our own colleagues under such circumstances. This is called plan A, B, C, right? You can have the first plan, which has to be everybody's, which has to have the concurrence of everybody around. Otherwise, you cannot start. Otherwise, the project cannot start without the concurrence of everybody in the team, right? Or you need to establish that this is the plan A which is solved. Most of the time, if you are an intuitive leader, then you will not have the logic to establish that this is the only plan that can work. So, what is the way out? The way out is to allow the other person to outline plan A. Then you can have plan B. Suppose something goes wrong, then you can have the plan B. You know, the other plans have very little uh, presumptions which can go wrong. 80% of the time, plan A should go as per plan. But how many projects or how many work are there which go according to the plan? 90% of them fail on plan A. So it is obvious, everybody knows that the obvious is always plan A when everything goes as per plan. But it is the plan B and plan C which ultimately works. So unless you have plan B and plan C, which have less and less probability of occurring, you cannot be successful most of the time. So in order to have a highly successful percentage, you need to have plan B, which has lesser probability of occurrence, and plan C, which is even lesser probability of occurrence, but there is some possibility, right? There has some possibility. So the person who foresees those possibilities is the leader, obviously. That is why you are the leader. But as a leader, in order to take the team along with you, the first thing is to have their buy-in and what they obviously see. And not many people will appreciate your effort to be presuming something which has not yet happened, which has very less chance of happening. People will even turn to you saying that you always think very negative. It is not so, but from your experience, it is like that, right? So, what in the contrary, there is like say when everybody is thinking that it is not possible, you are thinking it to be possible. In the positive sense also, this is where also you will not likely to get the vibe. Being positive when everybody is thinking it to be negative is also a possibility. Here you are thinking positive. So what is the logic that people will be opposing you? Because there is very less chance of success. That is why also people will oppose. So this has happened in my case. right? So this is why everybody thinks of plan A, plan B, plan C, thinking of the situation when things will go wrong. What about the other way around? When there is very little chance of it going to be positive, but you still have that kind of optimistic attitude. Now, how do you cultivate? So, what is the better thing? What are you trained for? You are trained to be optimistic, right? You are trained to be optimistic. But most of the time, people behave negative, pessimistic, and that is considered to be easier. So, what is the difference between both these mindsets? Obviously, it is attitude, right? So, the first thing is attitude. If you think, and everybody, like say, there are a lot of people who have said, you are either way right. If you think that it is possible, it is right. If you think it is impossible, you are again correct. You are on the right. So why not think about it to be positive and it will happen and it is possible. So in order to have that to be possible, you have to have a plan, solid plan. Now the next thing comes. When you are acting against something insurmountable, which is Himalayan in nature, how do you do? Like say you know at the moment that whatever is there in the possibility, that will be 50% possible. Another 50% is on the possibility. Now, is that allowable? Is that permissible? Unless you work, like say you have to have a, 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 a mixture of possibility, right? All the time you cannot conjecture on something that will come becoming possible halfway through. So from the beginning, if you are not seeing it to be a possibility, then most of the time you will not be allowed to take up that project. What happens is when you will be allowed is when there is a need to take up that impossibility to happen, people will be wishing that to be successful, that has to happen. For example, climate change. You need to have that climate change adaptation, right? Adaptation as well as adoption. Both these are near impossible, near impossibility. Still, since it has to be done, people wish it could happen. So then what? Then people will allow you to take up those kind of projects. Now that is where also my mindset comes in. Those projects I take up, knowing that there is a 50% chance of failure, but at least I can initiate, right? Unless you initiate, how can anything will be possible? So this again is attitude and mindset, right? So how do you define your leadership characteristic? This this is where there is 90% of like when you define that 100% adoption and adaptation is happening, it is maybe or may not be possible, and if possible, it will happen in a limited way because it is not a not something which one person can achieve. It needs to be adapted over a certain area across the globe, and there needs to be many people to doing the same thing. Everybody is trying, and everybody has to come together to make this happen. When an effort has to happen in such a scale. People normally, in limited circumstance, they will give up. They will say that this is not possible. Well, how do you define your success? Making a small dent also is a success because it is something rather than nothing. You are having nothing, and then to have some success is something. No, it is there. Something is there. You have done something so that another person will take up from there, right? If you teach something, if you create a little awareness about something, then the other person can build up on that awareness, right? So somebody needs to take up from somewhere. And if another person is taking up from with you, climate change adaptation and adoption will not happen in a day. Do you think it will happen in a year? If it would have happened in a year, then everybody knows about global warming and green gas effect since last 40 years at least. People have known about the ozone layer gaps, the ozone holes, more than 50 years back. Still, nobody nobody has given any heed. Nobody has paid any heed to that. The, everybody knew that the refrigerator that we use, it gives out some gases which ultimately creates hole in the ozone layer. Now, have we given up using fridge refrigerator? We have continued with that. Have we have we come up with another alternative strategy, alternative technology to use this fridge with an alternative technology? Not much. It is there, of course, but since it is very expensive till now, so not everybody uses it. In fact, very small percentage of people use refrigerator of that kind. Now, the government needs to subsidize that. Now, why the government doesn't subsidize it? Because there are other pressing concerns for the government, for all the governments. They have hunger at the first place. They have to reduce that. So, climate change issues take a backseat then, and hence it gets neglected. Now, do you understand why certain things happen? Now, what do you do in the face of such huge responsibilities by every civic body, the government, the globe? What can an individual do, even if you know that certain things will be possible and certain things will not be possible? Would you not do whatever is possible at your place, with your capacity? What will you do? Right? So that is the alternative you need to take. That is again a mindset issue, right? One of the things that climate change adaptation brings us is to do one task that climate change adaptation brings us to do is agriculture, organic agriculture. So some 50 years back, there was this green revolution wherein chemical use was supported and uh, patronized to a huge extent. People started using chemical fertilizer, chemical pesticide, and everything. So it was a pressing need of that hour. There was this hunger again in India, So people started using. There was, of course, certain certain proportion with which one needs to use this chemical pesticide and fertilizer, but nobody paid any attention to that detail, and people started using like any amount, and what happened as a result? Soil got destroyed. The natural resistance in the food that brought us natural resistance and capability to sustain the life and to be healthy, that capacity in the food is gone. What we are consuming is half poison, right? And it also has created environmental pollution. It also creates in indirect method, in the indirect way, carbon footprint, and it 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 has become a health hazard. What does a person do when such thing happens? So you pursue with. So when I was there in the field, when I had to do this agriculture as an alternative livelihood, what did I do? I persisted with organic agriculture. Thankfully, in India, in the remote places, organic agriculture is still practiced. So that is where I started doing. Slowly, it has spread in India. But when I was doing this, I was also resisted. My management was saying, why, how can you prevent the farmers from getting more production? Because the chemical fertilizer and pesticide help them getting more production. But organic crop, those get a premium value. In which market? Those markets need to be brought to the doorstep of the farmers. So this is another dimension in which we need to work. That cannot be one person's effort alone. If I say and if I think that alone my effort will do everything, it is not possible. But still, it created a beginning. That is again a mindset issue. You need to play according to the popular demand, popular opinion, or according to your conviction. So when you start doing those things, you tend to get those frictions. How do you manage? You cannot just keep saying that the other people are not getting whatever I'm trying to get. Of course, for any human being will get affected because you are able to see, and the other people will see your point over a period of time, not in the beginning. How to manage? Not to grieve, of course, not to get angry. If you get angry, then all the time just you will be fighting. So here the next thing is to have the perception. Suppose your seniors are against you, they will either stop you from doing whatever you are doing, or they will resist. Right? So, how to manage the seniors' perception? Here is what your conviction comes. So, the seniors are few; they are not many in number. So, it is very easy. That is a point in your favor to be used to convince those people because those are very few in number. What you can do is call a meeting and explain what is what. You can quote the sources, you can call their common sense, course, everybody knows, everybody has the idea. But when it comes to implementation in a very small area, then people play the other way around. They don't go according to their conviction. They become populist. They do whatever is popular, whatever has been easy. When people started, when scientists started popularizing the chemical use, they have to make effort, right? To tell people that this is the way to go. This is the way to go forward. Now, after say 30-40 years of that kind of propaganda, people have started using chemical fertilizer. People have started using chemical fertilizer. Now it is not very easy to stop them from using those. Right? So that was an example of mindset. Let me start with who I am. So when I started, I had this kind of conviction. I started as a programmer first. I was a social researcher. And soon after, I transitioned into a person who implemented this kind of projects. So when the first project that came my way was the Bhamasha project, financial literacy project in Rajasthan, wherein 44 lakh women were to be enumerated for the account opening towards financial inclusion in Rajasthan in 29 districts. So there is some so that was to be done in 2 months time. 44 lakhs. If you divide per day involvement of manpower, if it takes 10 minutes for one person to be enumerated and the photograph to be clicked and everything to be done, if it takes 10 minutes, then it takes 2,500 professionals to be engaged in a day to cover around 75,000 people. 44 lakh women divided by 60 days, it comes to 75,000, and per day it comes to 2,500 professionals, volunteers to be engaged on field. So where from this 2,500 people come? This is one effort to source the volunteers. So in order to source 2,500 volunteers, you need to have 5 times more volunteers, right? And not all the 2,500 will continue for all the 60 days, because people are otherwise engaged and they can give some of their time at one go, right? So what was done was about 12,000 volunteers were called from all across India, and they were trained on various things, enumerating them, filling up a form, take their photographs, combine together, and that is how one person is done. So 12,000 people, volunteers, were brought, and they were trained over a 7 days period in batches. They were trained how to fill up forms, how to click the picture, and then they were posted in teams in 29 districts of Rajasthan, every block and every GP. And these teams were placed across several camps. So this planning and scheduling was done. The first thing was to source the manpower. The second was to arrange the training, the hall, the logistics and everything. The third was scheduling, how to train and where to train and what to train. The next is to create the relationship with the district administration, because when the work started, Rajasthan was a place where the company, the organization was not very familiar with. It didn't have any operation in Rajasthan. So the territory was completely new. And so there was this relationship had to be established. So that took time, and that took one strategy to do. How, where from these people have come. They needed introduction with the district administration. Then there, according to the coherence of certain people, the team formation was made. Then the camping strategy was done, and the traveling and the accommodation. Now, these required planning, an elaborate kind of planning, right? How to do this kind of planning and how to start with this. So eventually, and then when the work started, there was this payment. The advance was to be taken in some account, then the reconciliation, and how to do the again source the fund. So this was the entire elaboration which has happened. Now, when the next thing was to action. So batches of people, when people were going from one camp to the other, whoever was there, the local people were sourced to be in that camp, and those people were to be paid before moving on to another camp. So payment was happening every week, right? And every week twice. So that required reconciliation at field level. Payment was to be done. There was security issue. So basically, it required a greater kind of execution planning to make that happen. So eventually, this was done, right? I remember when the central team in a district was placed at a hotel, and it was Jalawar district in Rajasthan, where I was personally placed, and we were in a hotel, and we arranged in such a way that we would have taken 10% discount because we were staying there for 2 months, right? And our mobile teams were block-wise placed, and this 10% discount were taken in the form of food. And why centrally? Because it was easy for us to be in the centrally placed team to monitor all across the district. So there were several teams were placed. Like that. So so there was this mindset, which I call as attitude. Then the perception. There were many uh, conflict happening with the seniors and the juniors and the teams within. Some people were complaining about the payment. Some people were complaining about the logistic. So if you think about the greater question, greater mission of including 44 lakh women then all these things you need to take care somehow. You need to have this kind of vision, and everybody needs to be inspired with such a vision, right? So this is how my first project was done. Now, how many, if I have to do such a thing across the globe, can I do it individually? It requires people's involvement. Right? People with my vision, it needs to be given people this kind of vision. Maybe there are many, but they don't kind of uh, they don't venture to think this way or to have this kind of dream. So how do you teach them? This is how the concept of leadership growth with resourceful influencing subject came up, and let us see how I have formulated this. Let us straight go to, you can see few of the recognition that I achieved for the community. This was of course my next project. Let me show you the first thing. Recognition for me as well. This is Vijay Mahajan, the father of microfinance in India. He has to say something like this. Sangeeta, you are an emerging person. Your ability to come up with relevant innovations needed at the base of the pyramid, which I call coconut innovations for the millions, is wonderful. But the world is full of smart idea warriors. What distinguishes you is that you find resources and platforms. Let me share this. What distinguishes you is that you find resources and platforms to try out the ideas, to pilot test them, improve them, and hopefully scale those up. So I have this vision of creating, impacting a billion lives. So far, I have impacted 10 million lives. If I do it physically all by myself, it will not go up more than, say, in the last 12 years, if I have done 1 crore, 10 million, then in the next 12 years, it will be again 1 crore, right? And with the ripple effect, it can be, say, another 2.5 crores, unless I work with more volunteers and more leaders who have the same kind of mindset. Right? So that is my vision. Now, in order to have this kind of leadership, we need to have people oriented with these values, right? Let me. So the first bundle is be the person you are meant to be. So whatever your conviction is, it always pinches you, right? It always comes to your mind that this is what you want to do. Right? being the person of solution. So instead of thinking about the problems, we can think about the solution, and no matter how small, it is always a beginning. Be your future being, persistence and influence, sought after and irrepressible. So in every famous leader started somewhere, right? And when they started, it was always an impossibility. So that is what they made possible. How could they made it possible? It is with persistence and influence. So what are the traits of becoming a persistent person? And adopt change, live on the edge. This is where all the change. So if you are a catalyst, you are doing something for the betterment of people, then live on the edge, be a person of change. Now there are 3 days of course happening around this, and we will perfect some traits with periodical self analysis. When it comes to the 3 days thing, what we'll be doing is we'll be dealing with certain issues in triplets. This is what self is. How to know what we know, what we are aspiring to be, why we are born, what is our aptitude is, right? We'll be dealing with that in triplets. The next is growth. So uh, the four tricks are: it is you yourself, it is your USP, your unique selling proposition. You will find a solution according to your own USP. If you know your USP, accordingly you will plan a solution. Everybody has a USP and everybody plans accordingly, right? So that is what you need to know and how you would contribute to that purpose. Next is growth. Growth is when you learn and perfect that skill. The next is with that growth, you will influence people because first you need to establish, right? That is when your growth is happening. Your own style of work you will be establishing. That is when growth is happening. That is the mid stage. And then the influence. Then these are the uh, during the course, after the course actually, when you go through the video course, then we will have weekly group counseling wherein we will discuss about this self-analysis thing, shifting paradigm, whether it requires your paradigm shift, whether your mindset needs to be accustomed or reorganized, your vision, and what is your specific purpose, your version, where are you in terms of your vision. Actually, it is no use getting frustrated about something which you are not yet there. If you are not there, it doesn't mean that you are not meant to be there. Ultimately it will be, but it takes time, it takes effort, it takes work. Then there are few mindset issues, like say to be able to persist, you need to have this constructive mindset as well. You need to see progress happening. So there is a money management talks in between. When you are successful, are you also gaining monetarily? Then take a stand and stand by it. We will have to do this all the time. Suppose at workplace, your senior says something, your junior plays a tantrum. Now, how to manage? You have to keep your bigger vision in view, and accordingly, you have to do this. right? Trust in relationships. Whatever is your relationship with everybody, senior, junior, and peers, you have to have a positive mindset, otherwise, you will be hating them whenever there is a resistance coming, right? This is what we will be discussing. Then, the most important is the dream tracker. This is the dream tracker I have designed for myself. Everything will not happen according to the timeline and according to the way I have perceived. There are certain things which have happened not in the same manner. So allow the process, the universal process to happen. Your ultimate dream will happen in a manner maybe you haven't perceived the same, but all the same, you need to have a dream plan. You need to have the granular details as much as possible according to your understanding, right? Now, there are 5 bonuses I offer along with the course. These are about the internal patterns where we will be dealing with your dream to take place, your everyday victories, how you will keep up your higher self-esteem, how you will turn around your negative story to a positive thing, how you will keep track of your natural abilities, and in the process, you will get to know about your past condition, how to know that past condition. Next is the mindfulness. Of course, you need to observe. Everything has one solution, to be silent. If you don't allow your mind to chatter all the while negatively, then you will see that there is a huge change you are making in the person in front who is in conflict with you. You start change, right? Next is the process versus result. Now, the process is important than the result. When you are working for a long-term goal, the process is more important because that is where sometimes your result will be mm, what you have thought for, and sometimes it will go against. But if you ask, sometimes you will win, sometimes you will fail. But if you are persisting with your process, then the ultimate win will be yours. This is what we will be dealing with the process versus result segment. Then delegate appropriate. When you are working on a bigger vision, it will not be allowed. So how can you delegate to other people? You can only delegate if you have empowered some people, if you have won their trust, right? And if you are aligned with their vision as well. Right? This is delegate appropriate. And be a person of change. You should not, most of the time it will be your realization, but many of the times people are not stuck with just one thing. They are open to certain choices. If you are open to certain choices, then nothing will frustrate you. Suppose you are in a job which kind of uh, say it insults you to be there, downplays your contribution. How do you shift your attention from negativity to positivity. You need to have some constructive uh, choices also to make. Suppose you are writing, you are a writer. So the negativity will not hamper because you will dwell on that aspect. You accept that sometimes negativity will happen, right? You will allow that time to take place. So this is a mindset issue. So I call this as a perception, action, attitude, and habit, right? This has nothing to do with your skill or experience. This is something which is a mindset issue, and you are solely in control of how you will react. Becoming becoming proactive rather than being reactive is something which will put you in a positive phase, in a positive format for time to come. The whole entire bundle is of say about 60,000, but as a webinar price, it is just at 4,999. Let us see what are the results we'll be getting. The entire result will be small shifts towards a great, happy, and peaceful life. Daily success stories will be there, worry free life. I'll show you another a mindset file. Let me show you a file. Can you see this file? Okay, so it is not visible right now. I have written down, it is here. A journal which is of, see, how many lines now? Every day I write down this journal since, let us see, since July, and it has become, say, 500 lines long. Every day I write at least at least 3 lines, right? So these are success stories. I don't allow myself to write anything negative. Let me come back to that PPT. So this is ultimately what we will get. First week result will be finding the niche area, our unique selling proposition. That is the niche. Second week, we'll create a mindset document. Third, winning trust of the seniors. Fourth, winning trust of the peers. Fifth, we'll do goal setting. Sixth, we'll do a dream tracker as shown. Seventh week, we'll turn a negative story into a positive story. Eighth week, this will changing gear to positivity. Ninth week, reinforcement of positive thoughts. in terms of attitude and perception. The same with habit and action. What is troubling you? 11th week, a success blueprint. 12th week, confidence installation. 13th week, mindfulness. 14th week, translating to an enterprise. So these are all the things that we'll be having here, and the webinar price is 4,999. And if you are associated with me, we'll get to a particular solution, at least one solution for you personally. That is what I profess of. So if you find a reason why to be associated with me, then this is the link with which you can pay. And if you have any questions, let me stop sharing and let me